Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something that might seem a little bit odd at first.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's this idea of actually trying to find arguments that go against what we believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, shouldn't we be looking for stuff that supports our beliefs?
Right.
But trust me on this one, folks. It's going to be a really fascinating discussion.
Ah.
And we're going to be taking a look at an excerpt from Stephen T. Collis's book, Habits of a Peacemaker. One of the coolest things I found was how he uses this idea of opportunity cost when it comes to arguments. So help me out here a little bit. What in the world does economics have to do with arguing?
Well, economists are always saying there ain't no such thing as a free lunch,
Right.
meaning that everything has a cost, even those things that look like they're free.
Yeah.
Well, kind of the same thing with arguments. Every position you take, every belief that you hold, there are always counter-arguments out there, even if they're not super obvious. And so we kind of end up paying this opportunity cost whenever we don't at least check out these other points of view.
So instead of free lunch, we're talking free beliefs. Like there's always a cost to having a belief. And that cost is all those arguments that we haven't thought about.
You got it. And Collis uses a super interesting example to show this. Seatbelts.
Oh,
We all know that seatbelts save lives.
of course.
Right. That's the big argument in favor of seatbelt laws. But what about the other side? What are some arguments against seatbelt laws? Can you think of any?
Well, I guess some people might say that it's all about personal freedom.
Right.
Like if somebody wants to risk not wearing a seatbelt, that should be their choice. But honestly, I think the safety benefits are way more important than that.
Yep.
What do you think?
Oh, for sure. When it comes to safety, I'm right there with you. But I think it's still super important to acknowledge those counter arguments, even if we don't agree with them.
Okay.
It helps us see just how complicated the whole issue is. And it can even make our own position stronger. For example, another argument against seatbelt laws is that it can be tough on big families.
Ah, right.
They might need a bigger, more expensive car so everybody can have a seatbelt.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So by actually looking at these counterpoints, even the ones that maybe seem a little weak, we can get a better understanding of the issue and maybe even make our own views stronger.
Exactly. It's not about winning or losing an argument. It's
Yeah.
about being a more informed and thoughtful person in the conversation.
So it's less about I'm right, you're wrong, and more about, hey, let's look at everything about this and see where it takes us.
You got it. It's about realizing that our beliefs, even the ones that we feel really strongly about, might have some weaknesses that we haven't even thought about yet.
So how does all of this connect to being a peacemaker like Collins talks about?
Well, think about it. A peacemaker isn't somebody who runs away from conflict or tough ideas.
Yeah.
A peacemaker is somebody who leans into those challenges and actively looks for different points of view to get the whole picture.
I can see how understanding these opportunity costs could actually make us better at having good conversations. By thinking ahead about counterarguments, we're basically clearing the path to understanding each other.
Right.
But, I'm curious, is there a reason why this seems so hard for us as a society? Colin says something about a cultural shift toward avoiding discomfort.
That's a really important point. He says that as a society, we've become more and more focused on avoiding anything that might make us feel uncomfortable. And that includes intellectual discomfort.
Yeah. It's like we've given up real deep thinking just so we can feel comfortable for a little while.
And because of that, we miss out on making real progress.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so true. We pick and choose what we see on social media, where we get our news, even our friends, all to just back up what we already believe.
Right.
So it's no wonder we get all defensive when someone comes along with a different perspective.
Makes sense.
But Collins doesn't just point this out. He actually gives us a really interesting take on why we might be so afraid of discomfort these days.
Yeah. Go on.
Well, he talks about the work of this psychiatrist, Anna Lembke,
Okay.
and she says that the way we understand psychology, especially Freud's work on childhood trauma, has kind of shifted in a way that could be feeding this whole discomfort avoidance thing.
Okay, so tell me more about that. How has Freud's work been misinterpreted, maybe?
Well, Freud's ideas about how our childhood experiences affect us were really revolutionary for the time.
Right.
But Collins suggests that maybe we've taken them a bit too far. Lemke argues that Freud's work has kind of morphed into this belief that any challenge, any discomfort we have means we need therapy.
So instead of seeing challenges as chances to grow, we see them as things to avoid or fix. Like we're so scared of feeling any discomfort that we're missing out on learning and growing through those experiences.
You got it. And if this fear of discomfort spills over into how we handle ideas, no wonder we find it so tough to really consider counter-arguments. Just
Right.
think, if we're always protecting ourselves from different viewpoints, we're missing chances to learn, grow, and change the way we think.
So this discomfort we're talking about isn't just about feeling a little awkward in a conversation.
Right.
It's about being willing to challenge those things we really believe in, maybe find those blind spots we talked about, and maybe even change our minds along the way. It's like embracing the opportunity cost of not changing our minds.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. And remember, being a peacemaker, like Collins talks about, doesn't mean becoming a pushover or giving up on what you believe.
Yeah.
It's about being open to those uncomfortable ideas, taking them apart, and figuring out why they make us uncomfortable in the first place.
Because maybe, just maybe, there's something valuable hidden in that discomfort.
Exactly. In that process of wrestling with those uncomfortable ideas, we might find weaknesses in our own thinking, or we might find even better reasons for our beliefs.
Right.
Either way, we come out of it knowing more and understanding better.
It's like we're boosting our intellectual immune systems by exposing ourselves to all these different viewpoints.
Yeah.
The more we grapple with those opposing ideas, the better we are at handling the complexity of the world around us.
It's not about winning arguments. It's about becoming more informed, more thoughtful, and ultimately better at convincing others of our own beliefs.
Right.
And as we do that, we get better at having constructive dialogues and finding common ground, even when we disagree.
You know, this reminds me of a quote I heard recently. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Seems like embracing counter-arguments is a big part of developing that kind of flexible, adaptable intelligence.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to that simple idea of opportunity cost we were talking about.
Oh, right. It's not just about money or time.
Nope.
It applies to our beliefs, too. By choosing to only listen to arguments that agree with what we already think, we're missing out on a whole world of intellectual growth and understanding. Yeah, it's like we're choosing to stay intellectually hungry, even though there's a whole buffet of perspectives out there.
That's a great way to put it. It really comes down to recognizing that real intellectual growth often means getting a little uncomfortable. It's about pushing ourselves past those comfy echo chambers and really engaging with ideas that challenge what we think we know.
And I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up for today.
Sounds good.
But before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about. If we only hang out with people who think like us and only listen to ideas we already agree with, what are we missing out on? What amazing perspectives, insights, maybe even life-changing connections are we passing up just because we're too comfortable where we are?
That's a really powerful question.
Yeah.
And one we should all be asking ourselves pretty regularly.
For sure.
It reminds us that real intellectual growth means stepping outside our comfort zones and embracing the richness and complexity of different viewpoints.
It's like we're all on this big intellectual adventure.
Yeah.
And the best discoveries are often off the beaten path, down those unexplored trails where our beliefs get challenged and our minds get expanded. I like that. Who knows what we might find when we're brave enough to venture into those uncharted territories.
You never know, right?
Right. Maybe we'll even find that those challenging viewpoints help us understand our own beliefs even better. And that, I think, is the greatest reward.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, expert speaker, thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.
Happy to be here.
This has been a fantastic journey, exploring counter-arguments and how important they are for personal growth and having meaningful conversations.
Absolutely.
And to everyone listening, keep those minds curious and open to the incredible power of embracing counter-arguments. Until next time, happy deep diving.